In our last two classes, we have learned the concept of one-dimensional and two-dimensional arrays and how to declare an one-dimensional array. In today's class, we will learn how to initialize an one-dimensional array. For initialization, we will learn four methods, though all the methods are not same efficient. In the first method, what we do is, what I can see here is we have declared here marks as an integer array and the size is 5. So in the declaration part itself, we are initializing that one dimensional integer array by its 5 values, and we can see on the right side that those values are mentioned within curly braces and each value is separated by comma from the other value, and the whole statement is terminated by semicolon. So this is one way. In case of float array also we do the same thing. Suppose if it was a array of float values and if the size was 5, then in the same manner we would have mentioned all those 5 float values within curly braces and separated by comma. Now in the second example, what we can see here is name is a character array and the size is 9, and here within curly braces and within double quotes we have mentioned the whole string. So this character array will contain this whole string value easy to see, and here we can see we have here 4 and here 7 alphabets, and these two words are separated by space. So in total we have 8, and since this is a string, a character array, and we know that in case of character array we reserve one extra byte at the end for null character or terminator. So in total the size of that character array is 9. Now we have another example where again the same array, same character array we are declaring here, the size is same and that is 9, and the difference is here in case of initializing this character array we are not mentioning the whole string together within double quotes, rather each letter has been initialized or has been mentioned here separately within single quotes. So one by one we are initializing each byte of that character array. So under that method we have two ways to initialize the values of a character array. Now we will see another method where we are not mentioning the size, rather we are in the declaration part itself we are initializing that array by its values. So again we have used the same integer array and same character array, and the method of initialization of all those values of integer array and character array, they are same, only difference is here we are not mentioning the size. So how many values we are initializing that array with, accordingly the size of the array will be decided and that will be taken by the compiler, and this method is more efficient than the previous method. Here we don't need to change the size of the array if the requirement changes, only if we change the number of values on the right side of that initialization or in the declaration part, then that will automatically change the size of that array. And I have already mentioned and you have already noticed that if a character array is initialized by listing its elements one by one, then null terminator must explicitly be mentioned at the end. Now this is the third method of initialization of an one-dimensional array where we have declared the integer array along with its size, and now we are initializing each element of that array by mentioning its subscript or index value, the way we access each element of that array in the body of the program. And we know that in case of C, the subscript value starts from 0, and that's why the last index of subscript value will be maximum size minus 1. But again, this is not a good way to initialize an array. And this is another method where we have declared again the same integer array along with size, and for initialization part we have used a for loop where again this index value we have seen that it changes from 0 to 4. So accordingly the value of I has been set within that for loop, and within this body of that for loop or within this curly braces we are using here the scanf function, which will accept each value from the terminal, and this is the syntax of the scanf that we know. Here marks is the one-dimensional integer array, and within this bracket we have mentioned the index or subscript value. So when I for the first iteration, when value of I will be 0, it will be marks of 0. That means the first element of that array, and whatever value we will be supplying from the terminal, that will be stored as the first element of that one dimensional integer array. That means this will be same as this initialization. Then again the loop will be iterated, so this time I will be 1 and this will be marks of 1, means the second element of that array, and accordingly this will be processed till the last value of that index. So when the size of this array will be large, whatever array it is, and be it one dimensional or two dimensional, this method will be proved as the best method or much more helpful than the other methods that I have mentioned in this class itself. Any reference to the arrays outside the declared limits would not necessarily cause an error, rather it might result in unpredictable program results. So if we are trying to initialize or access any element of a particular array which is beyond the size of that array, then it is not mandatory or necessary that it will cause an error, rather it might cause an unpredictable result. An important point that we should always be aware with in case of array, that if the number of elements are lesser than size of that array, the size that we have declared for that particular array, then the rest of the locations are automatically filled by 0. Now this is again the integer array marks, where the size I have declared as 10, and here we can see that I have initialized only first 5 locations of that array. So what about the last 5 locations of that array? They will be automatically filled by 0. Now suppose we want to initialize all the elements of a particular array by 0. Then what would be our approach? As we have seen 4 methods of initialization of an one dimensional array, and I have said that the fourth method, last method, where we use for loop, that was the best method. Here the marks one dimensional integer array, its size is 50, and if we want all those 50 elements to be initialized by 0, then the fourth method, what we have seen as the best method, we can use. So there is no harm. This will not show you any error, but this time this method will not be proved as a good method. Instead of that, what we can do is we can use this approach or this syntax again in the declaration part itself, where we have used the size of that array. Within curly braces we have mentioned only 1 0. So the first element of this one dimensional array marks will be initialized by 0, and what we have seen, that if the size of the array is more than the elements that we are mentioning in case of initialization, then rest of the elements will be automatically filled by 0. So all the 49 places, rest of the places or rest of the elements of that particular array will be automatically filled by 0. So we don't need to exclusively initialize all other elements of that particular array. So this way we can handle more efficiently. Now when we are initializing an array, we cannot leave the curly braces empty. We have to mention at least one value there, means the first element at least has to be initialized. So this is not a valid way of initializing an array. So far we have seen the advantages, we have talked about the advantages of array, but it has a few minor disadvantages also. Like if we have large number of array elements, then there is no shortcut method of initializing those large number of array elements. Secondly, if we want to initialize only selected elements of an array, then there is no convenient way to initialize those selected elements. Though we have the concept of designated initialization of arrays in C, but that is not a very convenient way to initialize. So far we have obtained a brief and good knowledge of one-dimensional array, its declaration, its initialization. In the next class, I will talk about two-dimensional array. Till then, stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.